Central to Eastern Caribbean, we got Tropical Storm Melissa right now. What is it at? Around wind speeds 50 mile per hour sustained with 65 mile per hour gusts, moving west at 13 miles per hour. It's going to slow. It's going to stall. What's happening? Well, we've got actually a lot of shear up here to the north. So this storm wants to move up to the north. It's kind of going to run into this jet, a little bit of a subtropical jet here, and it's going to meander around for a while. My biggest concern is you see all of these models that I'm going to show you right now. You see all of these models showing that this storm is going to head away from the States, right? Here is our Google DeepMind FNV3 model. Here is our Google DeepMind GenCast. Now, obviously, high confidence in this moving away from the States. But here's my issue. I don't trust the models at all with this storm system. And that's because when you get a stalled system that just decides to float around for, this could be 4 or 5 days, the weather pattern up here is going to keep moving, right? A lot of things are going to change up to its north. And in that time, it's meandering around. We don't really know exactly what the setup is going to be up to the north of this system in the Western Atlantic Gulf and then moving across the States. We don't know what's going to be there once this system decides to pick up again. So we see all these tracks moving it off into the northeast, into the open Atlantic, which it very well could. You would think this is only 2-3 days away. No, this is like 6 days out once this thing starts moving off into the north and east. So I wouldn't trust this yet. I'm not saying it's going to move into the Gulf or it's going to make an impact to land or anything like that. I'm saying there's still a possibility it does because a lot of these models see this thing floating around here. We can actually go quickly take a look. Here are our GEPS tracks, and you can see there's a lot of confusion. We have some that take it pretty far out east, and we have some that actually take it pretty far west. This is a lot of room for error, and there's going to be error here. Definitely. Will it be enough error to make, have an impact to southeastern U.S.? Possibly, possibly not. The good news is you can see here once this thing starts moving off to the north and east, guys, we're talking about 168 hours, 120 hours, in some cases 192 hours. This thing is going to float down here for a little bit. Taking a look at our latest forecast models, we can move down into the Western Atlantic here. Here's the latest GFS. It actually has it moving up pretty quickly into the northeast. If we were to go back to our 12Z, we can see this system. Actually, on the 12Z, the GFS is really throwing this thing out of there. Let's take a look at our Euro model. See, our Euro has it meandering down here for quite a while. Look at this. Okay, this is 144 hours out, and it has it moving about 50 miles to the west. That's a concern because then a lot of stuff happens up to the north here, and we don't know if this is actually going to move out into the open ocean or if it's going to move into the Gulf. We don't want it to move into the Gulf. These waters are baking. So that's something to watch moving forward. Regardless, we have time in the southeast. We have plenty of time to see what it does. There's no need to panic buy or freak out. This storm could very well not affect us at all. But again, this stalling out is something to watch. So that's something I wanted to talk about. Really quickly, moving forward, and we'll take a look at our GFS because it's going to show us a little bit farther out. We do have this big upper level low up in the Midwest moving out to the Northeast. So moving into tomorrow, we are going to get a little bit more moisture moving into Michigan. Potentially, maybe some flakes flying through the air tomorrow. We'll have to see, and then that upper level low is going to move off and be out of our hair. As we get into the weekend, we can see we do have a nice stream of moisture moving into the southern plains here. That's going to move off into the southeast, and we've got another kind of burst of cold air that's going to begin to move in here up through the northwest. Another storm system there. You can see a lot of snow falling in and around the northern Rockies and Pacific Northwest in the higher elevations. This is going to be interesting as we get into early next week. So there are some models that actually do bring a little bit of snow on the back end of this system into Minnesota and the Dakotas, but we are expecting at least a decent amount of moisture through the plains and then down through portions of Dixie Alley. This could end up being severe. So what we're looking at here is potentially next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're going to have to watch out here. This could end up being a severe outbreak through Dixie Alley. And by the way, behind this is a lot of cold air, but we'll get into that in a second. So as we get into the middle of next week, now we're talking the 29th, 30th, and then 31st. Right now in the GFS, Halloween, it looks like it could be messy up through portions of the Mid-Atlantic and New England. I'm telling you right now on the 12Z Euro, it does something a little bit interesting here, and I want to show you that. If we take a look at the 12Z Euro, you can actually see our storm system out here. This would be Hurricane Melissa, getting pretty close with a strong low pressure system along the coast here in and around October 30th, October 31st. There could be a weird interaction with this that we need to pay attention to. Potentially Melissa trying to be pulled into shore here because of the tug of this low pressure. So something to watch out for. It could end up being a messy Halloween or a messy 30th through the 1st out here along the eastern seaboard. So if you have Halloween plans, which a lot of people do out east, especially along the coast here, I'd stay up to date with these forecasts. And this is going to be a lot of cold air out there to the east as well. Quickly moving into some temperature updates. We obviously have some cold air moving into the east. Here we go as we get into tomorrow. A lot of below average air settling in to portions of the eastern plains and then out through the Ohio Valley and southeast. We're going to push here into the weekend. Here we go, get into Thursday, Friday. A lot of that cold air sticks around out east, and then we get a little bit more warmth pushing back into the west and the plains. Getting into early, and you can see the weekend's pretty warm out here through the central U.S. Getting into early next week, a lot of cold air again pushing back into the west. And then as we get into around Halloween time, 29th, 30th, and 31st, the GFS is still seeing a ton of cold air for much of us in the States. This would be the 30th. And we move forward a little bit further. Now we're talking the 4th and 5th. I've been talking about this for a while in my videos. There's a lot of different global model guidance that suggest specifically the time frame November 5th through November 15th being very, very cold out here. Potentially a lot of blocking up here in Canada and over Greenland. So I would say the first 3 weeks of November, we could have some snow in weird places, maybe a little bit farther south than expected. Because I think we could have, if we get that negative NAO set up with this enhanced polar jet we're expected to have as we get into early November, we could have a lot of displaced freezing air with a little bit of moisture to feed off from the Gulf. So if you're looking forward to potentially some early season snow, watch out the first 3 weeks of November through the central plains and out east. I did want to mention this is through the November 2nd. This is our national blend of models. Our national blend of models always underdoes the snow because it's taking into account model runs that don't show any snow and model runs that show snow. So even seeing a little bit of maybe an inch or two of snow out here on the national blend, a little bit up here in the upper Midwest, northern plains, you can see in these regions, we're definitely expecting some up here in the Rockies. But this is interesting because the national blend of models usually shows a lot less than what we could see. So some interesting areas there that it thinks we could see some snowfall in the next 10 to 14 days. I did also very quickly want to show you what is going on up in our stratosphere. I've been talking about this for a little bit, but it is important. Let's go northern hemisphere. Here we go as we get into late October and early November. Warm anomalies up here affecting our stratospheric polar vortex. What does this do? It slows our jet stream up here and creates a lot of wobbles, and it displaces a lot of Arctic air. It pushes a lot of Arctic air into areas it shouldn't be. You start to get this wobbling jet stream, and this is when you get potentially some snowfall a little bit farther south than you'd expected in November, some freezing temperatures a little bit farther south than you'd expected in November in the States. This is, I can't remember the last time I've seen this warm of an anomaly. That's so perfectly over the Arctic. And this is November. We've talked about it for a while. November and December potentially being a very, very cold start for the states, especially the plains and out east. I think that's most of what I wanted to go over. So with all that being said, I'm going to go back and get into some questions.